Welcome to Swords and Hammers. Truth comes clothed in tales, and the soul remembers what the mind alone forgets. The world is loud, but for the next few minutes, it can wait. Take a moment, settle yourself. Listen well. Come, let us begin. The Ship of Sacred Fire, a tale of two deceivers and the storm that sees all hearts. Captain Gershom stood at the helm of the Veritas, a merchant vessel bound for the fabled harbor of New Jerusalem. His weathered hands gripped the wheel as he studied the peculiar compass mounted before him. Unlike any common mariner's tool, this compass pointed not to magnetic north, but toward truth itself. Its needle quivered and swung according to the honesty of those aboard. The ship carried 47 souls, all refugees from the great persecution. They had pooled their wealth to purchase passage, selling lands, houses, treasures, everything for this voyage to sanctuary. Among them were Amos and Priscilla Thornwood, prosperous cloth merchants who had announced their sacrifice with considerable ceremony. Every thread, every bolt of silk, all of it sold for the common good, Amos had proclaimed when they boarded. The other passengers had wept at such generosity. Some had given their last copper coin, widows who poured out all they had to live on. But the Thornwoods' sacrifice seemed greatest, for they had possessed much. 3 days out from port, the weather turned strange, not violent, but watchful. The wind seemed to pause and listen. The waves rose and fell like the chest of something breathing, something vast, waiting beneath the surface. That evening, Captain Gershom noticed the truth compass spinning wildly. Its needle whirled as if caught between two poles, unable to find its bearing. He summoned his first mate, an old sailor named Jason, who had once denied his captain thrice in battle, but had spent many years since in faithful service. "Something's false aboard this ship," Jason said quietly. "The compass only spins like that when someone carries a lie so heavy it bends the very air around it." Gershom gathered the passengers on deck. The setting sun painted the waters crimson, as if the sea itself had begun to bleed. He spoke carefully, his voice carrying the weight of one who had learned that words matter. "Friends, our compass tells us someone among us harbors deception. We cannot reach harbor while carrying such cargo. The waters of approach to New Jerusalem test every vessel, and a ship divided against itself will surely founder." The crowd murmured anxiously. Several passengers began confessing small sins, harsh words spoken, doubts harbored, fears unvoiced. But the compass continued its mad spinning. Then, without warning, the sea erupted. Not in violence, but in light. The water around the ship began to glow with phosphorescent fire. Every wave crested with flame that did not burn, but revealed. In that terrible illumination, shadows became transparent. Hearts stood naked. And there, at the center of the crowd, Amos and Priscilla Thornwood began to shine with a different light, a sickly, golden glow that pulsed from hidden pouches beneath their cloaks. "The gold," whispered Priscilla, her voice breaking. "We kept back half the gold." The truth compass suddenly snapped to point directly at them, its needle steady as iron. Jason stepped forward, not in anger, but in sorrow. He knew the weight of denial, the taste of betrayal in one's own mouth. "You didn't merely keep gold," he said. "You kept it while accepting praise for giving all. You stood before these widows who gave their last mite, and you let them honor you for a sacrifice you didn't make." Amos's legs trembled. "We thought surely some prudence, some reserve for emergencies. You thought you could deceive the deep. Gershom's voice cut through excuses like wind through fog. These waters know every heart. They test not the gift, but the giver. Not the portion, but the pretense. The phosphorescent fire began to rise from the water, climbing the hull, surrounding the ship in walls of revealing flame. Every passenger stood exposed in that light, their true selves visible. Some radiated, brightly, clear as glass. Others flickered with smaller deceptions, quickly confessed, quickly cleansed. But around the thornwoods, the light grew terrible. "Choose quickly," Gershom commanded. "Cast the deception overboard, or be cast overboard with it." These waters suffer no false cargo. Amos reached for the hidden gold, then hesitated. His fingers closed around the pouch. "But if we give it all, we'll have nothing when we arrive. We'll be beggars." "Better an honest beggar than a wealthy corpse," Jason said. "I know from experience. I once chose my purse over my captain. The weight of that gold becomes the weight of your grave." Priscilla looked at her husband, saw her own fear reflected. Then she saw something else. She saw the widow Ellen, who had sold her wedding ring for passage. She saw young Frederick, who had given his father's only inheritance, a fishing boat that had fed 3 generations. She saw what real sacrifice looked like, and the gold in her hands became suddenly unbearable. She pulled out the hidden pouch and hurled it into the phosphorescent sea. The waters hissed and steamed where it struck. Seeing his wife choose truth over treasure, Amos did the same. The moment the gold disappeared beneath the waves, the terrible light began to soften. The truth compass steadied, pointing now toward their destination. But the cost was paid in more than gold. Amos collapsed to the deck, not dead, but emptied. The lie had been part of him, woven through his soul like rot through wood. When truth burned it away, little remained. Priscilla knelt beside him, her own strength barely sufficient to stand. They had survived, but as different creatures than before. The fire had consumed their pretense, leaving them hollow, waiting to be filled with something real. "The waters test all who would enter the holy harbor," Gershom said to the assembled passengers. "Some bring offerings of gold, others bring offerings of truth. But those who bring false offerings, who paint brass to look like gold, find that the very waters rise against them." Jason helped the Thornwoods to their cabin. As he tended them, he spoke of his own failure, his own restoration. "The lie we tell ourselves is that we can manage our own image before heaven. But the divine harbor master sees every ship's true cargo. Better to arrive empty and honest than full and false." That night, the phosphorescent fire faded to a gentle glow that guided them through the darkness. The truth compass pointed steady and sure. And in their cabin, Amos and Priscilla began the long work of learning to live without pretense, discovering that empty hands can receive what full hands never could grasp. The next morning brought clear skies and following winds. The Veritas sailed on toward New Jerusalem, lighter by 2 pouches of gold, but infinitely more seaworthy. Gershom gathered the passengers for morning prayers and spoke words that would echo through their new life. A ship may carry many things, spices, silk, treasures uncounted. But it cannot carry the weight of a lie and still navigate the narrow strait to harbor. The waters themselves reject such cargo. For the sea that leads to the holy city is made of liquid truth, and only honest vessels may sail upon it. 3 days later, they saw the lighthouse of New Jerusalem piercing the dawn. Its beam swept across the waters, not searching for ships to guide, but for hearts to examine. The Thornwoods stood at the rail, no longer wealthy merchants, but something more precious, souls made transparent by truth's terrible mercy. As they entered the harbor, other ships hailed them. Each flew the same flag. A white banner marked with a tongue of fire. Each had passed through the same phosphorescent waters. Each had learned that the price of passage was not gold, but honesty. Not perfection, but transparency before the light that sees all. The Veritas dropped anchor in calm waters. The Thornwoods were first to disembark, not in pride, but in gratitude. They had discovered what every sailor learns who navigates those sacred straits. The fire that reveals is the same fire that refines. The storm that tests is the same storm that teaches. And the God who judges deception is the same God who rejoices over one lie cast overboard, one heart made true. Years later, when new refugees sought passage to New Jerusalem, it was Amos and Priscilla who stood at the dock, warning each new passenger. You cannot smuggle shadows into the light. The waters know. The compass reveals. Better to board the ship with empty hands and a true heart than to carry gold that will drag you into the depths. And still today, somewhere on the vast ocean, the Veritas sails toward that holy harbor. Its truth compass spins and steadies, testing each heart aboard. The phosphorescent waters rise when lies are present, gentle when truth prevails. For the sea road to the sacred city permits no false cargo. Only honest pilgrims who have learned that integrity is not a burden to carry, but it is the very wind that fills your sails. The ship continues its journey. The harbor awaits. The truth compass guides shore. And you, dear listener, are you ready to board? Selah.